Hello there and welcome. In this video I got you 10 tips and tricks regarding city layout. So in this video we're going to talk about all the things that you can do by just looking at your map and considering where you build which item, because it really does make quite a big difference, and I did my best to summarize my experiences in a way that I hope you will profit from it. So first of all, I want to point out water and agriculture. So ever since version 66, we can now transport water all over the place. The water does make your pastures more productive and makes your farms more fertile. It also gives you freshwater access that you can use then for pools, moats, and all the other wonderful things where people can bathe in. So that means when designing your city, the ideal path, in my opinion, is you build out some water pumps somewhere. Take care not to block these spots too much with your fishery. And after that, you line it down to where you want to do agriculture, and you can then use those pathways, like I did here, to install bathhouses that also have freshwater access. Basically, the idea is that you use the water to fertilize your fields, and you try to draw the canals through your city in a way that you can get the most out of it. So as you can see here, I tried to utilize pretty much every piece of canal to get my fields fertilized and get those get the most out of the water usage. This, of course, is really dependent on how your map is built. Here we have a lot of water around us to work with. Sometimes that's not possible, but the sentiment stands. Where there's water, I'd really suggest to use your agricultural endeavors there and pipe the water in a way that your city can benefit from it. Number two is about industry chains. So ideally, I personally am a big believer of manufacturing things where you're producing the raw goods. So here we have the woodcutters, and right next to the woodcutters, there's the charcoaler and the paper maker. The industry for furniture, the carpenter, is not really far away. He could be even a little bit closer, but the basic sentiment here is quite easy. If you can, if it doesn't really mess up your city build, it is very powerful and valuable to do it like this, because this way the workers of your workshops have a very short tour to grab the raw resources, because at the end of the day your workers go out there to grab themselves some wood from somewhere. Alternatively, of course, you can resolve that with a warehouse, but more about that later. I've made very good experiences, to say the least, with putting industry chains together, so they stay very productive and you get something to use the room with. Number three, housing and service centers. So SYX v66 has a very strict policy. People live where they work. So when you switch on the housing screen, you can always see yellow houses are, or yellow workshops depict where you don't have enough housing. That means wherever people do the work, you also need services like at least a well and a hearth. If you want to be a good and nice emperor, sovereign, however you want to call yourself, you make sure that they get a food stall, a lavatory, and shrines in the vicinity. Basically, where there's a lot of people living at, where they will work, you will need to replicate the services accordingly, because at the end of the day, your people either go very unhappy because they will be not providing the service that they want, and they will be unproductive because the field workers will then have to go to the food stalls somewhere else at the other end of the city, because some needs have to be fulfilled. So you lose on several ends. Therefore, it's best to just slam in the services wherever you have population centers. I've made very good experiences with that. Namely, here again, well, hearth, marketplace, food stall, lavatory, speaker. These are basically the pillars that you can build a little city center out of. Number four, I want to talk about leaving room for decorations. So when you're building your city, you see you can build very compact blocks like I did some here, but you can also just leave a bit of room between the houses. This is really cool because that allows you to put in statues, torches, trees, all those things that make your people happy. There is quite a lot of positive environment factors that you can use, and if you make your city too narrow and too cramped, you won't have enough room to put these powerful happy makers all over town. You can also easily put them on the streets, like you see here. I have those benches here on the streets and the pillars, and it's not that problem. The problem is only one if you have forgotten to leave room in between. Therefore, try to avoid building block-like where it is not really beneficial. Sometimes I do it, for example, here to keep the labs together, or the housing complexes, or sometimes the workshops. But yeah, you get the idea. Number 5, logistics. So logistics are extremely important, and here are a couple of ideas and thoughts how you can make life easy for you. So I'm by now a big fan of several small warehouses all over the place. This has a lot of little benefits. So basically, if you put these all over the city, you have several points where the people can pick up stuff from. Another thing that will ultimately become very important. So when your woodcutters, for example, are not logistically able to just have big workshops right next to them. So for example, we have down here the pottery very, very far away from the clay pit because I have my artisans district down here. So there's a couple of things. First of all, try to have a warehouse with the clay that you need in the vicinity. And the other thing is you can always install a hauler somewhere close by and configure it to haul clay. This is one of the easiest ways to resolve little problems in your workshops. If you feel like your workshops are not working as intended, you can always click into them, and if there is a little yellow or red flag icon here on this symbol, the one that changes here, then you will need to upgrade your logistics. That's pretty much the gist of it. Also keep in mind that in the architecture mod technology tree, you can unlock logistics and transports technology. Logistics does the trick really for a long time. Transports are what you need once your city has several thousand denizens and you just have, for example, a big farming outpost that has to carry thousands of pieces of grain down to the bakeries. That's what you use these things for. Most of the time, you will be perfectly able to use haulers, warehouses, and the smaller things. But once you see a job that has a recurring volume of several thousand units, that's where you need the transports for. Number 6, geography. So at the end of the day, the geography of your map does define how your city will look like. Wonderful example, my big clay pit up here is pretty much defining where my stuff is happening at. And these things, they are always all over the maps. You have it either by water or where your mineral deposits are at. Some of these factors you can easily configure while you're beginning the map and rolling it, but at the end of the day, it is also what defines your city and gives it a little bit of character. What I'm trying to say with that is, when you don't know, or when you're founding a city anew, check out the geography around you and plan according to that. So here we already knew that our clay industry would live here, and it would have been a fair decision to say, nah, the potteries will be up here because we're doing a real big pottery empire, and we'll have 2, 3, or 4 pottery workshops up here, and we don't even make it down here. We just ship down the complete pottery to the rest of the city. This is one example of what you can do with geography. This map here has no mountains whatsoever, so I can't really talk about these, but yeah, mineral deposits in the mountains are a similar thing, as are, yeah, so I think this goes without saying. Fertility values are also another meter that is also a reason geography-wise. This map is blessed with a tremendous fertility, but sometimes you just don't have that. You get the idea. Number 7, fuel. So fuel is a very important topic. Namely, wood and coal. So whatever happens in your city, you need these goods to keep your people alive and keep your industries working. Therefore, try to have, for one, always more of that stuff than you need, because in the worst case scenario, you will just sell away the excess fuel. And the other thing is consider having haulers deeper down the city to transport the fuel down. So, for example, here in this city, we have all of fuel production very, very bound in the north. So, that is one thing. That means down here we will have to use haulers and transports to get the fuel distributed. I emphasize this so much because cities really can have a lot of problems if the fuel is not spread. Bakeries can't produce food, starvation ensues. Hearths can't warm people in the winter, people will freeze to death. The problem about fuel shortages is that, unlike other goods, it quickly goes lethal. When people are running out of booze, they just go unhappy. And yeah, fuel is a little bit of a different venue in that regard. Number 8 is a very similar thing, janitors. So janitors need to be spread all over the city, and I highly recommend you to have always a janitor too many when in doubt. My personal favorite janitors have place for 10 workers. I have these small boxes here, and they work a charm. So when you're zooming out on the janitors, you can see how far their grid reaches. Always make them overlapping. Always have a few more than you actually need, because the logic is super simple. Your people will suffer degradation if your janitors are not present. Degradation leads to less productive buildings. Less productive buildings lead to spiraling problems. So what also is very important to note, as you see here, we're missing sometimes resources. You need to check up on your janitors from time to time if they are missing something. So that is very, very important, because I have made the experience that janitors with missing resources, I don't know if this bug has been fixed, but in previous versions they stopped working altogether. But probably has been fixed by now. The bottom line here stands though. Never build anything new in your city without janitors, and double, triple check them whether or not the whole city is covered in janitorial services. It is that important. Number 9, you can go for racial specialties when you're planning your city. Every race out there has different things they like, be it access to benches to cut stone buildings or gemstone in your treasuries. Everybody loves something different. You can use this to even build city centers. So for example, back here, if we would add in a lot of Krytonians, we could make the following little steps. You can go and assign those houses just to Krytonians. Now we could go and start planting trees and doing all the things that Krytonians love. And before you know it, you have adjusted an environment so that the people that are working there are actually loving it. The key to all that is that you need to make sure that the work priorities are correctly configured. So if you want to force a certain race into a certain kind of work set, you do it like that. Check out for the priorities, make a nice little city center with things they love, and watch them grow happy. Number 10 is the last thing on my list, and I want to talk about quantity and quality when building. So in Songs of Six, you can build either super huge workshops, industrial complexes like, or you can also build those teeny tiny metal smelter thingies like I did here. The bottom line here is, it's always about you to make a decision whether you want a quality building. That means it's a large one that hosts a ton of workers. Laboratories are a good example for that. Or if the industry is not so important for your city in the long run, and you will be well off with a handful of small workshops, like here the Hunters, or yeah, I think the metal smelter and the masonry in the city are the perfect example. We don't have natural resources of ore and stone here, but I still have these small workshops. I could easily pick them up and copy paste them if I needed to, but for the bigger industries in the city, like for example the pottery, I could go and build much larger workshops and it would pay off. The point of this entire thing here is that I want to encourage you to think about how large your building has to be when you're building one. It's basically if you don't need much of that good because you don't produce the raw resource in huge amounts, a smaller workshop suffices. But if you know that it is an industry that will be upscaled eventually, best example for me myself is always the bread industry, it would be foolish to build 5 bakeries with 8 bakers each when you could just build one bakery for 40 bakers. I personally am not a big fan of clustering up my industries. If I have high demands on some good, I like quality workshops that can do the job. But at the end of the day, you can also argument and say 5 workshops with 8 workers are the same as one workshop with 40 workers. But yeah, I think logistically you benefit from a lower total count of workshops, but I think this actually would need some research. I just want to point out here that it is important to think about which size the current project really needs. So try to think ahead, and this way you can easily make decisions whether you want a small or big workshop. One last thought about this topic here is that when you start out, by all means keep the workshop small, because especially those that need some advanced goods like metal or all the costly things, it is really smart to have it rather small and running rather than large and not affordable. Alright, that's all I have to say about these. Thanks for watching, thanks for your time. Leave me other good tips and tricks about city layout that you can think of, because I hardly believe that 10 things are really all of the things that are there to say. And yeah, leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing, check out the description box. There is a lot of playlist stuff down there leading you to various different tutorials. There's a Let's Play tutorial series, and yeah. Thanks for your time yet again. If you'd be so kind to support Icon Gaming financially, I'd be a very happy man. The links are there: Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or YouTube channel membership. Either way, a big thanks to all of you who do, and a big thanks especially to you watching this video until the very end. I really appreciate you hanging out here. See you all next time. Bye bye.